Between 1955 and 1973, one of the most devastating conflicts of the 20th century unfolded across Vietnam. More than 15 million tons of bombs fell upon the countryside, turning verdant landscapes into wastelands. The nation was torn apart by napalm and toxic chemical weapons, earning this tragic period the grim title of the Dirty War. American forces, allied with the government of South Vietnam, engaged in relentless combat against the North Vietnamese Army and the Viet Cong, communist guerrilla fighters who fought with remarkable tenacity. When the fighting finally ceased, the human cost was staggering. 58,000 American lives lost, over 220,000 South Vietnamese soldiers killed, more than 1 million communist fighters, and countless civilians. The devastation seemed total. Yet today, more than 4 decades later, Vietnam has managed to rebuild itself. However, beneath the earth and hidden within the jungle, the physical scars of war remain. Silent testimonies to the violence that once ravaged this land. The divided nation. The Vietnam War split a nation in two. In the north stood the Democratic Republic of Vietnam, a communist state founded by Ho Chi Minh, backed by Soviet power, and commanding an army of 500,000 soldiers from its capital in Hanoi. To the south lay the Republic of Vietnam, a pro-Western nation allied with America, boasting its own force of over 1 million soldiers headquartered in Saigon. The border between these two worlds was established at the 17th parallel. Here, in what became known as the Demilitarized Zone, or DMZ, the ideological conflict would play out with devastating consequences. The first Americans arrived in Vietnam in 1955, ostensibly as military advisors. During the height of the Cold War, the United States sought to support South Vietnam as one of the last non-communist nations in Asia. But beneath this veneer of training missions were CIA operatives, tasked with instructing the ARVN, the Army of the Republic of Vietnam, in techniques of counterinsurgency. Yet resistance emerged in the South. Many residents rejected the American alliance and formed the National Liberation Front, the NLF, supported by North Vietnam. The Americans would call them the Viet Cong. When President Kennedy assumed office in 1961, he dramatically escalated American involvement. Troop numbers surged, and their mission evolved. South Vietnam became, in effect, a laboratory, a testing ground where the Kennedy administration could experiment with new military doctrines designed for small-scale conflicts in other regions of the world. The Ho Chi Minh Trail. To supply the Viet Cong, the Northern forces created an extraordinary network of hidden pathways known as the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Snaking through mountains across Laos and Cambodia, these routes delivered weapons and provisions to guerrilla fighters scattered throughout the South. The main artery descended towards Saigon, with countless secondary branches offering alternative routes to bypass American bombardment. At its height, over 120,000 people maintained this vital network. Transport units coordinated truck convoys. Artillery crews stood ready to counter American airstrikes. Army units patrolled day and night. Engineering squads worked ceaselessly to build, dig, and repair the trails. Near Saigon, in the district of Cu Chi, most of the Viet Cong forces were concealed. Beneath the vegetation lay something extraordinary: an enormous subterranean city. The guerrillas had excavated an extensive tunnel network from the soil, which was reinforced by bamboo roots, creating structures that have endured intact for decades. Huyen Van Chia, a Viet Cong veteran who grew up in Cu Chi, participated in constructing these underground fortifications. "We had no machinery," he recalls, "only our own strength. We used small picks because the earth was so hard. To remove soil, we employed flat bamboo baskets. We concealed each entrance by covering it with earth." The tunnel system developed over many years with 4 distinct levels. The first provided soldier shelters and enemy traps. The second, located 4 meters below ground, housed command centers where combatants planned their operations. Ventilation shafts ensured oxygen circulation. At 6 meters depth, the third level accommodated children, the elderly, the wounded, medical facilities, and vast stockpiles of weapons and food. A 4th level existed just above the groundwater table. Altogether, Cu Chi contained approximately 250 kilometers of tunnels, providing sanctuary for up to 16,000 people. The Tunnel of Rats. The Americans, keenly aware of these subterranean networks near their own encampments, devised a strategy to extract the enemy from their lairs. They recruited and trained a special unit, the Tunnel Rats. These soldiers were deliberately chosen for their slender build, primarily young men who could navigate the cramped corridors. The Tunnel Rats flooded the passages, detonated explosives, and deployed whatever methods proved necessary to force out the defenders. Yet, despite their efforts, the Viet Cong, intimately familiar with their underground domain, continued to inflict casualties from positions the invaders could not locate. Chemical warfare. To counter the guerrillas' advantage, their ability to ambush supply lines and troops moving along roads, American military strategists introduced a new and terrible weapon, chemical defoliants. In 1962, Operation Ranch Hand commenced. American aircraft began dumping powerful herbicides over areas controlled by the Viet Cong, intending to strip away vegetation, eliminate food sources, and expose hidden positions. Initially, the chemicals required days or a week to take effect. But when Agent Orange was introduced, the formula transformed. The most toxic variant, known as 245T or D, worked in merely 24 hours. From the war's inception until 1971, American forces dispersed 48 million liters of Agent Orange across Vietnam. The Aloy province endured the heaviest contamination. Of its 1,000 square kilometers, 80% received repeated spraying. According to records, the village of Dong Son alone was targeted 256 times. Environmental expert Phung Tu Boy has dedicated his career to studying this chemical devastation. When Agent Orange contacted vegetation, it weakened the plant stems. As repeated spraying continued, trees succumbed entirely. Yet the true horror lay in dioxin, a poison embedded within the chemical formula. Dioxin seeped downward through plants into the soil, and with rainfall, penetrated deeper still. Today, soil in these regions contains dioxin levels 12 times higher than maximum agricultural standards. Phung Tu Boy now works to restore these poison lands. He cultivates trees whose roots capture and neutralize dioxin. His goal is to revive the forests that once flourished and coax back the wildlife that fled. The Gulf of Tonkin and Rolling Thunder. The bombing campaign intensified dramatically in 1964, following a pivotal incident. On August 2nd of that year in the Gulf of Tonkin, American destroyers exchanged fire with North Vietnamese torpedo boats. President Lyndon Johnson, unwilling to tolerate this affront, declared war on North Vietnam. A year later, the United States launched Operation Rolling Thunder, the war's most massive aerial bombardment campaign. American fighter jets, particularly the F-4 Phantom, carried bomb loads of 10 to 12,000 pounds each, roughly equivalent to the payload of heavy bombers from World War II. B-52 Stratofortress bombers delivered as much as 30 tons of ordnance per sortie. Napalm, a gasoline-based incendiary weapon, was added to this arsenal. Its effects were horrifying, illustrating the unprecedented violence of the aerial campaigns. Civilian refugees near the coast, just north of the 17th parallel, the village of Vinh Moc endured assault from every direction: land, sea, and air. Families initially constructed simple A-shaped shelters that could withstand naval bombardment and aerial strikes. When bombing intensified beyond endurance, residents were forced underground. Villagers excavated a 2-kilometer tunnel network connecting the beach to the settlement. Ocean breezes entering from the shore provided ventilation. Underground, they established everything necessary for survival: wells for water, infirmaries, operating rooms, and even a maternity ward. Between 1965 and 1973, 17 children were born in these tunnels. One of them, Ho Ti Gyu, spent her early years sheltered from the bombing. "We called this small room our apartment," she explains. 3 or 4 people could live here. Outside, life was impossible. Families, regardless of size, had only one room. We shared everything: every fish, every grain of rice, every vegetable. We ate together and fought alongside one another. Despite everything, we were happy. When peace finally arrived, the residents emerged to a landscape absolutely destroyed. Houses were obliterated. The earth itself was littered with unexploded ordnance. Unexploded ordnance. Today, Vietnam Association Renew dedicates itself to neutralizing the bombs, mines, and rockets still buried beneath the soil. Bomb disposal experts have identified approximately 160 distinct types of explosive devices. A single BLU-26 fragmentation bomb, no larger than a tennis ball, contains 85 grams of cyclonite, among the world's most powerful explosives. Upon detonation, it disperses 300 deadly submunitions in every direction. Mark II hand grenades, their detonators secured only by a pin, remain active throughout the country. An M47 bombs dropped from aircraft release 33 kilograms of phosphorus, creating intensely corrosive white smoke upon impact. An estimated 10% of the millions of tons of explosives dropped during the Vietnam War never detonated. They remain waiting in the soil, a constant threat to those who farm the land. The Tet Offensive and final years. Despite conducting over 300,000 aerial campaigns, American forces found victory elusive. In 1968, following 3 years of intensive bombing, an unexpected catastrophe shook their confidence. The Tet Offensive, launched during Vietnam's most sacred holiday, was perfectly timed. The Communist Alliance struck simultaneously at over 100 cities held by the South Vietnamese government. In Saigon, they targeted the American Embassy, the South Vietnamese Army headquarters, Independence Palace, and the national radio station. Weapons for this coordinated assault had been transported down the Ho Chi Minh Trail and secreted in warehouses throughout the city, including beneath private homes. 3 tons of weapons lay hidden beneath one family's residence, enough to arm commandos dispatched to assault Independence Palace. Though the Tet Offensive proved a military defeat for the Communists, their determination captured international attention. Americans back home began questioning whether victory was possible. By 1971, the United States conceded that this war could not be won. American soldiers began withdrawing while negotiations commenced in Paris. Then, in March 1972, the North Vietnamese Army launched a massive conventional invasion of the South, prompting one final American response. Operation Linebacker II, the Christmas bombing, came in December. From December 18th through December 29th, 1,700 bombing missions struck Hanoi. Over 9 days, more than 15,000 tons of bombs rained down on the North Vietnamese capital. Researcher Phung Tu Boy, age 22 at the time, sought shelter in a bunker with colleagues. A bomb crater appeared before them. The soil erupted skyward. Smoke rushed through the shelter entrance. Ears burst. People choked. "We were shaken violently," he remembers. The bombing killed 1,600 residents, yet North Vietnamese air defenses proved remarkably effective, downing over 80 American aircraft, including 16 B-52 bombers. These losses exceeded what America could accept. The Christmas bombing marked the final American offensive. On January 27, 1973, the Paris Peace Accords officially ended American participation in the Vietnam War. American soldiers departed. Prisoners of war were released. Yet despite the peace agreement, fighting continued. Without American support, the South weakened. After 2 more years of combat, North Vietnamese tanks captured Saigon. On April 30th, 1975, Vietnam was reunified under communist rule. More than 4 decades have passed since that war ended. Thousands of soldiers remain missing. The search for these lost individuals continues through dedicated archaeological teams and forensic experts working to bring closure to grieving families. Today, Vietnam stands rebuilt, yet scars remain visible in bomb craters transformed into fish ponds, in contaminated soil being slowly cleansed, in unexploded ordnance buried beneath farmland, and in the memories of those who endured. The Vietnam War remains among the bloodiest conflicts of the 20th century, a dirty war whose marks can never be completely erased, but whose lessons must never be forgotten.